in acknowledgement of the traditional owners, the Ngangana people of the Buldala land. This movie contains images of deceased Aboriginal people and may disturb some viewers.
Dad, I will talk up for you old story right through the beginning.
Because you can talk everything right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Daddy. My father.
What is The Little Black Book? This short documentary examines the Black Book by offering glimpses of Aboriginal lives and their circumstances in the days before citizenship rights. Just a couple of generations ago, Indigenous Australians were foreigners in their own land, a land they'd lived in for tens of thousands of years. White Australians were born citizens. Black Australians had no such automatic right. Yes, Black Australians could apply for citizenship, but it came at a terrible price. They were obliged to abandon their family, their people, their culture and their land, all the things that made them who they were. Citizenship demanded that black become white.
In the government gazette, it's got that my father name came up, and I've got it there in small print, and he is now not an Aboriginal. He is a member of, he's an Australian citizen. He's not to associate with Aboriginal people or talk to Aboriginal people because he is and if he broke that and assorted with Aboriginal people at the day, they would take that citizenship right off him and he'd become an Aboriginal again.
But their family was there to talk to them, you know, anybody, you know. We couldn't just pass them to say we stuck up or anything like that.
I never had a citizen right because I never bothered to have one.
Following the Terra Nullius Declaration, state governments were given power over Aboriginal affairs. In 1905, the Western Australian government legislated the Aborigines Act, which made the Chief Protector the legal guardian of every child under 16. Children could be removed from their families and forced onto a mission or settlement. A few years later, the age was raised to 21. Most did not have a birth certificate. Rules were set that governed Aboriginal employment. Reserves were established.
You live in their backyard, you know, wherever you work. You live in their yard, in the back, and they look after you, feed you, until they come and said, remove people from all the backyards, put one big reserve.
How it was back in the late 1800s when the police and the welfare came and took all the half-caste kids or the Aboriginal boys to Clumber and the girls to Beagle Bay.
For what thinking, who knows, really, because that's a long time ago, and you know, some of them came out of that quite good. Some of them came out bitter still. There are still a lot of people that you know, have that affect. My mum's the same, even though my mum's has got closure to her life of being in stolen generation. They still have that fear for the authority figure, you know, like if, oh, you know, someone come and a policeman or a welfare person come up and start talking, yeah, or they'll just sit there quiet and won't say a thing, you know. Sometimes still, and it's still there.
Some educated people eventually received a conditional exemption or black book to allow them to enter and interact with townships and determine a future for their own families. Barry Benning and his family are starting to be recognised as music pioneers and pillars of the community in Derby, a remote town in northern Western Australia, or Budalla country. Barry remembers a time when he had to carry a little black book around his neck to enter a town or pub and have rights. He believes that knowing the way Aboriginal people were treated can help us understand many social and psychological trends that would help all Australians lift a heavy burden.
Yeah, oh yeah, because we was taught by my mum and dad, you know. Colour is nothing, it's what you are and who you are. You know?
This short documentary was created to encourage further research and oral history recording before first-hand knowledge of the pre-citizenship rights days is lost forever. What having or not having the Little Black Book meant to people in different professions and places.
And in Broome, back in the 50s, before I was sent away, this is the early 50s, they had a common gate, a town common, a fence around the main town. And after 6 o'clock, any Indigenous person, or every Indigenous person, had to be outside the common gate or in the reserve of 1 mile. They weren't allowed to be in the town centre, out in the town common after dark. You know, or you'd have to have permission to be going forth or wherever you're going.
Gordon is now running the local community radio station, built on the old mission where he grew up. Due to his family's high standing, his brother applied for an exemption certificate in about 1950. He finally received it many years later in the mid-60s.
Through the police, and the police would confer with the chief welfare of the Aboriginal Indigenous Affairs. I was a policeman for 23 years. So, you know, I retired in 2007, and I've seen that side of life. This side of life, I was sent away from home. I was sent to this particular ground here, St. Joseph's Hostel, now where we stand. You know, back in the late 50s and all through the 60s, I grew up here, and sort of come back, and you know, I've got a good feeling for this place, and I love the radio station because it's on the ground that I grew up on.
As a child, Frank Lawford, a son of an important Mexican immigrant, was taken to a mission on Sunday Island. He was then adopted and taught by Dutchie and Lucy Benning, and later taken through law by the Bardi tribe. When he was about 18 years old, he moved to Derby, where he started his own family and proved to be a true jack of all trades, which the small town often depended on. His projects included welding all the streetlights, being in charge of workers at the local power plant, and for years he helped construct the famous local wharf.
Always well, very polite, good morning, good afternoon, yeah, and he was admired by a lot of people and myself. Yeah.
A few years ago, Benning Street in Derby was named in his honour. His loving Amy, or Binawala, was also brought up with Christian values as well as a strong culture.
Religious, but also spiritual too, because she still didn't lose her cultural aspects too, because I remember as kids, when there was big rain, we could see thunder, rain, lightning coming up through the marsh. She'd stand in the back of the yard, you know, where the toilet was, that area. And I used to wonder what's she doing, but she used to be waving and saying things, like hunting the rain away in her own way. We grew up in an old native welfare style house, 3-bedroom house, sheet irons, no fan, wooden stove.
Old copper.
All the boys had a musical gift which they used to form the first Indigenous instrumental band. Sometimes getting into trouble, the boys were saved by Dad's exemption certificate, or Little Black Book, which had all the children listed. They also felt safe from the welfare cars.
I remember my brother, I know, I could see him, sitting at the backyard of our home, sitting down with the old guitar and keep playing the Arthur Smith guitar boogie.
When they finished their chores, the boys would practice in their garden, playing the Shadows music to the delight of family, friends and strangers.
Lucky enough, they used to live 3 houses away, yeah, more or less next door, and used to hear this music playing. To me, I thought it was a record, to be honest, you know. Like, I haven't seen many people around playing guitar, although I played a little bit myself in school and that, but not like what I was hearing, and did sound live, and I was very surprised and walked down the street and they welcomed me in. Even though I was a Queenslander, I wasn't known here. Mum and Dad, they said, come in, and welcomed me in really good, you know, and found them to be lovely people and listened to the music for decades. Everybody knew them around the Kimberleys, yeah, they were well known for their music and talent. Yeah. Well, you can see that like in Derby it was a small place and not much to do, but they found a way. They were playing music, and no one can read music. They all play by ear, and left-hand guitarist playing upside down, little string on top, and you can tell the difference what he was doing. They play that well, you know, even play with their teeth.
They would appear in the Spinifex and Boab pubs in town.
Oh, they should play the Boab there every Friday nights, and we should be kids, not allowed in. We should just hang out outside the fence and just staring and sticky bigging and get chased away back home again. Yeah, but most of the time they used to jam back at the house, in the old house where we lived, grandfather's house.
Their musical legacy can still be heard around Derby today.
Me and Arnold Mackenzie started Silhouettes. That's been going on for a while. We've probably been the first Aboriginal hard rock band. That was sort of weird for a lot of people around here, you know.
But yeah, Benning Brothers, like I could say, they're a great inspiration. Today, these days, it has been a lot of suicides and stuff. So yeah, but music has been all my life. I love music till I, take it to the grave with me, And it's like in Derby, music now, that's what it needs, music. Because without music, there's no dancing,
Over the years, many people were relocated to Derby, including the Bardi tribe from Sunday Island. Bringing people together through their music and culture, the Benning family made everyone feel welcome and have connected different parts of the community over the past 60 years. The Benning Brothers' unique sound has inspired musicians such as the Pigram Brothers and others from Derby and around Australia. The Prison Tree, a historical landmark near Derby, was actually used as a prison when transporting criminals. Most Aboriginal people were judged by prominent businessmen in towns who were appointed Justices of the Peace, or JPs.
They had local business people, judges, none of them had no experience. They said, boom, 6 months for you, supplying alcohol and all that.
Cultural misunderstandings were also a cause of escalating violence.
I think the man went away, and all the people been in camp, and our wife, and like that woman even make a mistake. His wife.
Yeah, another man.
He killed them.
What would it be, the tribal law is okay?
Yeah, that time. But can't kill them people now. No. Yeah, but doing it that long time. Oh.
They're on white prisoners and shooting them.
Yeah. When come around there shooting them, the policeman. They had 2 trackers. A bad one too, the trackers. Shoot them dog.
Dingoes, or community dogs, played an essential role in day-to-day life, and the police trackers knew this. Aboriginal drovers worked for flour, sugar and tobacco, and some continued to do this for years after equal pay rights became law.
Oh, not them days. We were on their word all the time. We never had our time of our own. Only that 4 week we used to have. In 40s and 50s we worked for Miss Rose, Kenny Rose. Okay. And that's Chief Station. And we used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to work. In 60s, they said to the station manager, they said, you got to pay him proper wage. Then, like every station, this is with, letter went to every station, I think, and then I said, oh, I'm not going to pay all that money. So they're all sold out.
Drovers such as Harry Watson worked in stations for close to 40 years until 1970 without pay, even though he knew Vincent Lingari and was at the famous Wave Hill walk-off.
Only pay I got was when I was working for land, and our land, and when I worked in a hospital, got a fraud when I seen my first pay.
Lead singer Norman has also lived in Derby all his life. He has grave concerns about young people's well-being and direction, as he observes what is now more and more commonly called lateral violence.
6, 7, 8, maybe 10, 12 young people hanging up in a rope. Just from fighting and just from jealousy. We go to funeral every month, or maybe every week, maybe we'll say, or every next week. Funeral in this Derby town. Just over young people, hanging themselves.
He encourages young people to go back to their culture, embrace music, and forego negative cycles of behaviour and self-harm.
Keep your pride, music. Music is the one. Keep your pride. I told her, everybody, go back home, go back country, where you live. Now we stop back. That's the problem is. What? They can look after this town, and I'm going back home. I'm going back home.
Barry hopes the history books will be amended to include more information about the Little Black Book and its implications beyond simply a work permit which allowed entry into a town or pub. Until then, parents without an exemption certificate had no way of knowing if their children would be taken away and were far more likely to be treated badly by authority figures.
Go Paldam them Koran and Rajan camp and changing them, you know, to work.
This racial segregation ended with the Australian referendum on the 27th of May 1967. Until 1967, the Little Black Book represented a legal hurdle which was only crossed by some educated Aboriginal people who worked for white people over many years. Frank Lawford Benning's family did not disconnect from their culture, as was the condition of their exemption. In fact, they played a big role in connecting a dispersed people through warm hospitality and music. Frank would now have over 100 great-grandchildren. In seeking understanding of the past, one of the best ways is to ask people who lived through the 40s, 50s and 60s and remember the beginning of the end of discriminating colonialisation.
But overall, I look back and say, you know, okay, we had a lot of hard times. You know, we had a lot of hard times. And then you weigh up and say, well, we grew up in a hard situation, but we had a good time, you know?
You know, they reckon life is only what you make of it.
He never dreamt when he was young he would track in such a mud. What separates him from his dreams is a dry and dusty road. He never thought he'd sit beside a fire at night alone to count in light years the distance from his home. He tries to search the dreaming weighing on his mind. It's soul asleep, should he leave it lie, or is to wake it to be kind? There's so much effort needed now just to pack the swag and run and track back through the corridors of his mind that leads to home. How far away the stars above his native land, how far away his thoughts are now from where his people stand. It seems so many light years back to where he used to run and run. How far away he's feeling now, like he's light years from home. I think it's so much harder now to reflect on things so far. His feelings for his country, the shadows try to mar. His eyes are growing misty, but in his heart he's clearly shown that light years cannot separate his people from their home. How far away the stars above his native land, how far away his thoughts are now from where his people stand. It seems so many light years back to where he used to run and roam. How far away he's feeling now, like he's light years from home. How far away he's feeling